We have Kathryn13thMar'13 The Unpredictability of It All, Kathryn13thMar'13.
Thank you, Mrs. Toastmaster. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Everyone here has experience of work, whether it's at present, in the past, anticipation of the future. What I would like to speak with you about is the nature of work that is unpaid, and that is volunteerism. Volunteerism in Australia is a significant industry, and it's associated with the not-for-profit sector. You will have probably 6 million people volunteering their services, their skills, at any one time in Australia. It is something like 5% of our national product, not-for-profit industry. It is twice the size of the agricultural sector. What I'm demonstrating here is this is a significant sector of the working environment, and no one gets paid. I would like to speak to you about this from the point of view of the context of a community centre, the work of a community centre. Now, these community centres are littered through the community, and they are managed mostly by paid people because it's a serious job to be done. But inevitably, there are multiple people involved who are simply volunteering their services. And I'd like to point out a parody that operates here. Volunteerism is a significant contribution from an individual, and yet it leads to an unpredictability of the work output. Because how do you gauge if a person is performing well if they're a volunteer? There's a confusion of purpose that dogs this industry and dogs its efficiency. Allow me to speak about community centres, and may I ask, just some of you, your expectations of a community centre. May I ask you to think now, your experience, your expectations of a community centre. And if I just point to a couple of people, could you briefly just say, John?
To provide a range of resources for people.
Thank you. Flip.
It's for learning and for keeping people connected.
Wonderful. Sam?
I don't have a high expectation personally because I never use the maternal health services, and I know that's a community service.
Right. Then?
Again, I think there's lots of services on offer at a community centre.
There's all these things, and you are right, and there's no right or there's no wrong expression of what a community centre delivers, because every community centre that exists delivers a unique service to the community of which it is a part. There is no template for community centres. There's sort of a template for a not-for-profit place such as schools, but for community centres, not so. It can go from linguistic coaching to artistic workshops, a whole range of services, to looking after children. One of the predictable things of a community centre is the positivity of the atmosphere. You have parents bringing in little children who are paying a very nominal amount of money by which they can get on with their work and leave the children in very fine care. You have people who are attending classes who are seeing the work of the mature-aged art group, appreciating the work that they do. They'll also pass perhaps the kitchen, where people who are low intellectual merit are learning how to cook in classes. Now, I express that really poorly, of low capacity in their intellectual development, I meant. So there are things happening all the time in the community centre, but the element that is always there is that element of unpredictability, because when you volunteer, you're not going for a job. There is no role description. The way you will be utilised, be it you're a teacher, an engineer, an accountant or whatever, will be dependent upon how the management utilises your experience, what is needed at that time, hence the unpredictability of your contribution. So, you will certainly find that you have skills that translate in that atmosphere. The other thing that's very predictable in the community centre is that there's a different gauge of performance because it's a user-friendly, family-friendly environment. So when things happen with your family, if there's illness, if you're late or whatever, there's a moving ruler in the sense of it's excusable, we all march on. The corporation, the monolith, a huge identity that we usually have in employment is not there. The individual is the important part of a community centre and how that individual functions within the group and within society. So we don't have an omnipresent corporation that's dictating. We have people who are looking after one another's good interests. Now, the unpredictable element that comes into it, into the community centre's work, is that the people who volunteer, and I'm speaking from experience here, in terms of being on a board of a community centre, is that you are challenged into doing things and being responsible for things that you have never been responsible for before. And may I simply point out a book that was issued to board members. You enter a board thinking you will bring good judgment to whatever is put in front of you. You'll be honest and true. However, as you may well appreciate with the work of a board, the responsibilities are endless and they are becoming exacting also. So, whilst it might appear to be intimidating, such a broadsheet of how to do your job, it also is an effort by the government to create efficiencies in an unpredictable industry. It's not an inefficient industry. It is simply less predictable than what one might hope for because governments spend $25 billion towards the not-for-profit sector. It is a sector that creates $43 billion worth of industry. And up to this point, and up to recent years, it has not been strongly regulated. It is becoming more regulated now. That simply means the volunteers who are all contributing, it simply means there is a process by which a performance is now expected. I commend to you the role of volunteering in any of these community centres. You certainly will not be on a predictable path of contribution. You, however, will be on a very well-rewarded, personally rewarded path in your work industry, unpaid.